Far to the southeast is Arizona's most historic mining district. Not because of the gold and silver it produced, but because the Wild West's most famous event happened here.
One of my very favorite places I've ever been is Tombstone. Even though it's commercial, even though a lot of it is recreated, there's so much history there. And I like the places that have lots of history, that have lots of interesting characters. Even if they weren't necessarily good characters, it's still, you have the history of the characters and you have the history of the town itself. So you've got the gold mining, you've got the old buildings, you've got Doc Holliday, which I'm enamored with, not so much Wyatt Earp, but Doc Holliday. You know, the Cowboys, the Clanton gang, you know, all of that. You got the Painted Ladies, you got the Birdcage Theater, you know, which is very allegedly haunted.
Originally established in 1881 and operated as the place in Tombstone where booze-soaked dramas played themselves out nightly until the silver crash in 1889. It was described in the New York Times as the wickedest night spot between New Orleans' rough and tumble Basin Street and San Francisco's infamous Barbary Coast. It was the site of countless deaths by gunfire. Since its reopening as a museum, visitors have heard women faintly singing, children crying from their cribs, phantoms working their way across rooms, and countless other unexplained phenomena. But what Tombstone is really known for is the only documented Wild West shootout. John Rose is an expert on the shootout at the OK Corral. The shootout started with the activities of those cowboy gangs, which included Curly Bill and Ringo, who were rustling cattle along the Arizona-Mexico border.
You have this cowboy element, and there's these honest ranchmen, and then there's this local pejorative, this term cowboy curse, cowboy gang, and these fellows are an interesting entrepreneurial bunch. They raid up in here, so they'll raid in Arizona, for example. They'll steal horses and cattle up here, and then they'll take them down to Mexico. Then in one part of Mexico, they'll sell those horses and cattle, and then they'll go to another part of Mexico, steal their horses and cattle, and then run them back up here and sell them up here. Kind of like Walmart, never an empty truck.
The most infamous members of this loose confederation of cattle rustlers were the Clanton-McClory faction. Brothers Frank and Tom McClory made up one half, and brothers Ike and Billy Clanton made up the other half. Both operated from their own family ranches near Tombstone, Arizona.
This isn't your Rex Allen, Hopalong Cassidy, good guy cowboy, that venerated figure from the American West. When we talk about the cowboy gang here, we talk about a loose confederation of outlaws that are under kind of an umbrella, and they operate in and out of southern Arizona and western New Mexico, northern Mexico, and they're involved in these activities between stagecoach robbing, between cattle rustling. There's honest ranchmen, and they're separate. You know, we're not saying that those guys are criminals. In fact, the honest ranchmen in the area didn't care for the cowboy gang because they were preyed upon. It's interesting because when the Earps collided with some of these people, there were some ironies. Not rules across the board, but a lot of these cowboys were Democrats, and a lot of them were Southern sympathizers. The Earps, despite their fathers' Confederate sympathies, the Earps were all pro-Union during the Civil War. Virgil Earp was in the Civil War on the Union side. James Earp was wounded on behalf of the Union on that side. And many of the cowboys were sympathetic to the Confederacy as well as being Democrats. The Earps were staunch Republicans.
The Earp Law Gang was led by Wyatt, perhaps the most controversial figure in the Old West. Was he a good guy or a bad guy? Or was he both? Born in 1848 in Monmouth, Illinois, in his early 20s he drifted around the West, hunting buffalo and engaging in a variety of illicit actions and operations, until at the age of 28 he became a deputy sheriff in Dodge City, Kansas. a member of the formidable Masterson Law Gang.
This was a gang of people, you know? It wasn't just a guy, it was 4 or 5 brothers, friends, they all had guns, they all had badges. And I've got a contemporary diary that calls them the Earp Gang. So I think that suggests why their reputation grew. They had a reputation for violence that wasn't actual in fact. But they would not stand down. Bat Masterson writes later that Wyatt Earp, judged by true courage, said it was the bravest man he'd met in his life. He had no physical fear at all.
By 1881, the full cast of characters for the gunfight at the OK Corral, the Earp Law Gang and the Cowboy Gang, was assembled in Arizona's newest mining boomtown, Tombstone. On October 25th of that year, around noon, rumors that the Cowboys are planning to ambush and kill the Earps reached Wyatt and his brothers. But since the Cowboys are not carrying guns, there's nothing to be done. Then, as the rumors persist, Doc Holliday leaves his boarding house and joins the Earps in town.
Now you have everyone in place. You have Doc Holliday, Morgan Earp is there, Wyatt Earp is there, Virgil Earp is there. So that's going to be the Earp party. And the Cowboys are on the ground too. Frank McClary, Tom McClary, Ike and Billy Clanton. So you have all these people mixed together. The Earps, by about 3 o'clock, decide to go confront the Cowboys. Virgil decides that he doesn't want to look too provocative with the shotgun he's just borrowed from the Wells Fargo office. So he trades Doc Holliday his cane. He figures that the town marshal doesn't have the deadliest weapon, that'll look better to the Cowboys when he goes down to disarm him. He makes the mistake of handing the shotgun to Doc Holliday, of all people, the one that the Cowboys probably truly fear the most and dislike the most. The deadliest weapon is now in the deadliest hands, is how the Cowboys are likely going to see this. The Earps travel north on 4th Street. They head down Fremont Street. Sheriff Behan sees them. He's been down talking to the Cowboys. Ironically, he's just convinced Frank McClary, who refused to give up his guns earlier, to go to his office with him and give up his guns there. Had Frank McClary agreed and just handed the gun to Behan right then, he could not have been shot. Why? Because you don't shoot an unarmed man in the West. You just don't. Even Doc Holliday, the night before, as angry as he was and wanting to kill Ike Clanton so badly, did not dare fire at him because he didn't have a gun. The best defense in the Old West, if someone wants to shoot you, is to not have a gun. Frank McClary refused to give up his gun. Billy Clanton should have given up his gun. They don't. Now the Earps are going down. Behan runs towards them. He's trying to get the Cowboys to his office, but it's too late. The Earps are now in motion. He runs towards them. Don't go down there. I've been down there to disarm them. Virgil says, we'll disarm them, Johnny, brushes him aside and continues on down. Now, the Earps will say in trial, and I think they're lying about this, Behan will now say, don't go down there, you'll all be killed. Doesn't make any sense. Because the Earps claim that they relaxed their positions of their arms because Johnny had claimed that they had been disarmed. These are smart frontiersmen. They're not going to let their guard down for anybody. They're too smart for that. They travel down Fremont Street, and they swing around the corner of Fly's boarding house, and there they are. The 2 Clantons and the 2 McClarys. Billy the Kid Claiborne, another cowboy friend, is there. Wesley Fuller is in the area. They quickly decide this fight is not for them. They leave. Virgil yells, throw up your hands, we're here for your guns. And the critical moment occurs. For a nanosecond, there's this dead silence, no one moves, and then all of a sudden, Frank McClary starts to motion toward his gun. Now, if you're a big fan of the Cowboys, you'll say, well, maybe he was wanting to give it up. Wrong time to give up your gun, don't you think? When the police are saying, we're here for your gun, you don't reach for it. He starts to reach for his gun, but he hesitates. Frank McClary may have discovered that he really didn't want to kill. That's a good thing. It's a bad thing to learn about yourself when you're in the middle of a gunfight. And he is, and he doesn't realize it. He started to reach for his gun. That put Wyatt Earp in motion. Wyatt Earp had a philosophy about gunfighting. Fast is fine, but accuracy is final. He also said it was about playing the odds. He starts to reach. Now he sees that Frank McClary is starting to draw again. Now what happens is Billy Clanton is drawing as well. Wyatt Earp, in a nanosecond, sees 2 men drawing on him at once. What's he going to do? He only gets 1 shot. He knows that Billy Clanton is just a teenager, dragged into this by the loudmouth of his older brother, but Frank McClary has the reputation of being a real gunman on this side. He's going to give Billy Clanton a free shot. He's going to draw slowly and deliberately, very smoothly at Frank McClary, shoot him. He fires, he hits him in the stomach. Frank McClary doubles over. That doesn't mean he won't do a lot more damage in the fight, but now the most lethal gunman on the cowboy side is mortally wounded. The advantage immediately flips in favor of the Earps. Billy Clanton fires, the bullet flies right past Wyatt, and he's unwounded. Now what happens is Ike Clanton, the very guy who picked the fight more than anyone else, still doesn't have a gun. And he runs right across the field. I'm not healed, I'm not healed. He grabs Wyatt Earp, I'm not healed. What is he doing for Wyatt Earp? He's saving his life. He's blocking him. Cowboys can't shoot at Wyatt Earp because he's got Clanton right there. It's perfect for him.
It is said that 30 bullets were fired in 30 seconds. In the end, the McClory brothers and young Billy Clanton are dead. Doc Holliday, Virgil, and Morgan Earp are wounded. Wyatt and Ike, the two responsible for the fight, are unscathed. This half-minute-long gunfight is the biggest and perhaps the only straight-up gunfight between two warring factions in the Old West. However, the war was not over. On December 28, 1881, Virgil Earp is nearly killed by a shotgun blast. 3 months later, Morgan is just as unlucky. He's felled by a single bullet, shot in the back. The Cowboys get their revenge. However, Wyatt now goes on his own ride of revenge, the infamous vendetta. In the next year, Wyatt kills 2 of the Cowboy gang members. Forced to leave Arizona to avoid being arrested, Wyatt wandered throughout what remains of the Old West and Alaska, finally settling in Los Angeles, where he died in 1929 at the age of 81 from natural causes. Doc Holliday died in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, from tuberculosis in 1887.
Get out here!
Today, the reenactment of the classic Western gunfight has become the staple of many tourist-oriented Western ghost towns. None does it better than the annual gathering of the gunfighters competition in the historic and haunted Yuma, Arizona Territorial Prison. Throughout a weekend, usually in January or February, the old prison rings out with gunshots as gunfighter groups play out the Old West's most celebrated gunfights.
Hi, I'm Bill Ambrose. If you like this video, subscribe so we can bring you more programming from our studio. Thank you for subscribing.